So I've been doing a lot of philosophy videos lately, cognitive science really, and what that is really the basis of it is not only our experience of ourselves, but how do we come to have knowledge about the world, and what does that mean to have knowledge about the world? And I think what the type of cognitive science that I lean towards definitely emphasizes the limits of knowledge, and yet it also emphasizes the fact that we have to be engaged in the world always. We have to act in the world and be active, even knowing we can't have perfect objective knowledge. And so it almost throws us into this paradoxical situation where we're forced to take a stance on the world, take a stance on issues, moral issues, um, economic issues, just general life issues. We're forced to have opinions. And we say opinions aren't facts; they're just opinions. But there's no opinion-fact distinction anymore when we consider what knowledge actually is and to what extent we have knowledge of some objective, true external world or some objective state of affairs. Because everything is interpretive. Everything requires um, background. Everything has a context. And everything is seen from a perspective. And if we want to be able to act in the world in a justifiable way, we have to be able to apply our understanding of knowledge to practical affairs of the world. And I think a good area to apply cognitive science would be the drug war, because it's really to really think we're fighting a war against a bunch of chemicals and plants is silly. We're fighting a war against altering states of consciousness. We're fighting a war against the notion of people being allowed to do that legally. But it's only certain states of consciousness. Generally speaking, the more conservative-minded, authoritarian heads of society, the ones that typically become politicians and run the government in America, the people that are running the DEA right now, these are kind of people that when I say the phrase mental states, as in there are a plurality of these varying modes of consciousness with their own corresponding worlds and sensations and perceptions, and that notion that even exists for this more conservative kind of person is dubious. They don't understand that. There's one mental state. It's the rational ego, the individual that we are all assigned to be. We have our rights and we have our responsibilities. That's the only state there is that's legitimate for those kinds of people and for our legal system, really. And yet, alcohol is legal. And is there a more socially, individually destructive substance ever in the history of mankind than alcohol? I mean, you can argue that heroin is worse for the individual, but socially, alcohol is so destructive. 50,000 people, I think, die on average every year because of drunk driving related accidents, and who knows how many people die of cirrhosis of the liver. Who knows how many domestic violence um, uh, calls are because of alcohol abuse. The shockwaves and reverberations that run through our whole social structure because of alcohol are profound, and we don't even acknowledge that when we talk about the drug war. And obviously, prohibition didn't work. I'm not saying alcohol should be made illegal again. I'm just saying that there's this hypocrisy between what the dominant model of what the mind is for the powers that be is very selective in what states are acceptable and what states aren't. The Prozac state of mind is perfectly acceptable because the FDA approved it. It's a medication. It's not a drug, an illegal scheduled substance. Somehow it's in a different category. It's just like murder is okay when we're at war, whereas in normal situations it's the worst thing in the world. It's this. So it's really a fear of altered states of consciousness that has some of these drugs illegal. And I mean, there's a distinction to be made between hard drugs and soft drugs, between psychedelics and stimulants, depressants, and I mean, cocaine, heroin, meth. These things aren't in the same league as cannabis and mushrooms and LSD and mescaline and ayahuasca. These are can be intense experiences, these psychedelics, but they're not physically addictive. They don't make you violent. They don't take over people's lives. I mean, you don't need your fix on these kinds of things, on soft drugs. And hard drugs probably shouldn't be legalized, but they should be decriminalized in the sense that when you get arrested for possession of heroin or cocaine or methamphetamine or something, when you get arrested, you get put into rehab and not into jail, because in the long run, rehab is going to be a lot cheaper than chasing after drug criminals with guns, because they have to become violent in order to get away from the cops to get their fix. In the long run, that causes a lot more needless chaos and violence than a rehabilitation program would. So it just makes more sense to approach it that way. And soft drugs, I mean, cannabis should just be legalized. Sell it like you sell cigarettes, 21 and up. It's less harmful than cigarettes and alcohol. I mean, it's mind-boggling. Not to mention all the medicinal benefits of marijuana. I mean, they're finding it has applications for multiple sclerosis, obviously, not just for the pain relief, but for the regeneration of myelin. So it's almost not a cure per se, but a treatment. Parkinson's, it's cannabinoids in the marijuana plant have been shown to be effective in treating. Obviously it reduces nausea and increases appetite in chemotherapy patients. And studies are coming out now, statistical longitudinal studies about cancer and marijuana use compared to cigarettes. And statistically speaking, at least according to one study at I think it was the University of Southern California, people who smoke marijuana on a regular basis, based on a 1,000-person sample, random sample, had a lower chance of contracting lung cancer than non-smokers. And the researchers said, we don't understand how this is possible. And they reasoned that, well, THC tends to exfoliate lung cells, so that the lung cells are regenerating so quickly that it makes it difficult for a cancerous tumor to take hold. And they've also done studies where THC actually shrinks the tumors of mice who would have been genetically altered to have human lung cells, and they've shown tumors shrink when exposed to THC. And this is pretty counterintuitive, but this is the science that's coming out. And so marijuana should just be legalized. Something more powerful like psilocybin, LSD, mescaline, ayahuasca, ecstasy. These things should be sold in smart shops by licensed, trained, maybe even educated and degree-holding psychologists who can profile the people that come into these smart shops. They can see, well, this person seems responsible, and I don't have an issue allowing this person to go into the privacy of their own home, in a safe, controlled environment, and have basically a spiritual, transformative experience with these things, because they can be enormously beneficial when used in the right context.